I want you to picture a scenario. You're in a high-stakes meeting. Maybe it's a quarterly review. Maybe you're pitching a new client. The pressure's on.
Yep.
You're explaining a situation that's, well, a bit messy. And suddenly you hear it. You hear yourself. We missed the deadline because the vendor was late, so we tried to expedite shipping, but that didn't work because the weather was bad, so.
Oof, the dreaded because loop.
Exactly. It's painful. You can feel your credibility just leaking out of the room with every single so and because.
It's not that you're wrong. The logic is there.
Right.
But the delivery, it just feels low resolution.
That is a perfect way to put it. Low resolution. It sounds basic. It sounds like you're just reacting to the world, not really analyzing it.
And honestly, in a professional setting, relying so heavily on those two words, because and so, it just signals a lack of precision. It's kind of the linguistic equivalent of shrugging your shoulders.
Right. And that is exactly what we are fixing today. We are going on a deep dive into mastering cause and effect. But I want to be crystal clear up front. This is not a grammar lesson. We are not going to sit here and, diagram sentences on a whiteboard.
Oh, absolutely not. This is about executive communication strategy. It's about upgrading the logic you use when you speak.
Okay.
When you can articulate exactly why something happened, or, say, distinguish between a main cause and just a contributing factor, you don't just sound smarter.
No.
You sound like a leader. You sound like someone who actually understands the mechanics of what's going on.
To help us navigate this whole upgrade, we're looking at a really comprehensive breakdown from the Learning English podcast.
Right.
Specifically, a discussion between the hosts, Emma and John, who did a fantastic job of just tearing apart the mechanics of logic and speech.
And what I really appreciated about their analysis is that they didn't just stop at vocabulary. They pushed into the psychology of it.
Yeah.
They looked at how the words we use to describe cause and effect actually, shape our reality, how articulating a chain reaction can change how you solve a problem.
So the mission for today is simple, but I think really high impact. We're going to give you a toolkit to move beyond that simple A caused B structure.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about how to handle the slippery slopes, the domino effects, and, the unintended consequences of professional life.
I like to think of it as a software update for your critical thinking skills. We're going from cause and effect 1.0 to version 2.0.
I love that. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the baseline.
Yeah.
As we said, the default for most people is because and so.
Sure.
And look, I'm not saying we banish them. They're functional.
They are the workhorses, for sure. If you say, the traffic was terrible, so I was late, the message is received.
Of course.
But just think about the power dynamic in that sentence. The traffic was terrible, so I was late. You're a victim of the circumstance. The traffic happened to you. It's a flat line of logic.
It feels a bit like an excuse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even if it's a valid reason, the structure of it just sounds like a kid explaining why they didn't do their homework.
It does.
So let's look at the first immediate upgrade that the source material suggests. The phrase resulted in.
Now, this is a subtle shift, but the impact is massive. Resulted in. When you use this, you are shifting the focus from the excuse to the outcome.
The example from the source is, the heavy rain resulted in major traffic delays.
And just notice the difference in tone there.
Yeah.
It's completely objective. It sounds like a report. It sounds detached. You aren't complaining about the rain. You are observing a causal link.
It definitely sounds more managerial. It feels like something you'd see in, an incident report, not a text message.
Exactly. It distances you from the event. If you're delivering bad news to a stakeholder, resulted in is your best friend. The server outage resulted in a 10% drop in uptime.
Right.
You aren't looking for pity. You're just stating the mechanics of the failure. It projects control.
Speaking of projecting control and looking professional, we have to talk about the heavy hitters from the source material. Due to and owing to. Now, I feel like I see due to constantly in corporate emails. It's almost like the hallmark of business speak.
It is, and it's frequently misused. But let's put the grammar police hat on for just a second, because there's a nuance here that really helps with that authoritative tone.
Okay.
Emma points out a specific rule. Strictly speaking, due to functions as an adjective. It modifies a noun.
Okay, let's break that down. The classic example is, the flight delay was due to bad weather.
Right. So in that sentence, due to is modifying the delay. It's pinning the cause directly onto the noun.
I see.
Compare that to saying the flight was delayed because of weather. Because of modifies the verb, the action of being delayed. It sounds trivial, I know.
No, but I see what you mean. The delay was due to weather makes the delay a concrete thing, a factual entity.
Precisely. Due to feels static and factual. It's the clipboard test.
The what?
The clipboard test. Does this sound like something a person holding a clipboard and wearing a safety vest would say? The cancellation was due to safety concerns. That's authority.
Whereas you wouldn't say to your spouse, I am eating this sandwich due to hunger.
You could, but you'd sound like an alien trying to blend in. My consumption of this sandwich is due to caloric deficiency. It's just robotic.
Ah, right.
But that's exactly why it works in business. It removes the emotion.
And then there's owing to, which feels like due to, just put on a tuxedo.
Owing to is definitely the next rung up the formality ladder. You see this in press releases, legal statements, or really formal announcements.
The source gives the example. The game was canceled owing to the pitch conditions.
Yeah, that's not pub talk. You aren't turning to your friend and saying, I'm buying another round owing to my extreme thirst.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
But seriously, the takeaway here is rhetorical strategy. If you're writing a formal report or you're in a crisis communication scenario, swapping because of for owing to signals that this is official business, it commands a different level of respect.
So we have resulted in for objectivity and due toing to for formality. But what about when we are trying to, build a logical argument? When we need to drive a point home?
That is where we need the connectors. Words like therefore and consequently, these are the bridge builders. They tell the listener, okay, I'm about to show you the inevitable conclusion of what I just said.
The example given is simple. I didn't set my alarm, therefore I overslept.
It's simple, but look at the strength of that link. It implies a direct, almost mathematical relationship. It's not just one thing happened, then another.
It's A happened, so B was unavoidable.
Exactly. In a presentation, therefore is your mic drop moment. The data shows user engagement is down, therefore we need to pivot the strategy. It just sounds so decisive.
Okay, so that's the formal toolkit. You've got resulted in, due to, and therefore. But here's where I want to push a bit deeper, because real life
is never that simple.
And certainly real business is never that simple. It's rarely just, I dropped the glass, therefore it broke. It's usually a mess of different factors all tangled together.
You are absolutely right. The A cause B model just completely breaks down when you're talking about complex systems like, a market crash or a project failure.
Right.
If you try to pin a complex problem on a single because, you actually look naive.
And this is where I think the most valuable distinction in the source material lies. The difference between leading to and contributing to.
This is huge. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, take this distinction. Leading to draws a line. A leads to B, but contributing to. That is your nuance. That is your liability hedge.
A liability hedge. I love that. The source uses the example. Lack of sleep can contribute to stress, which in turn leads to poor decision-making.
Okay, think about that in a corporate context. Let's say a project failed. If you say the software bug led to the project failure, you are pinning the entire disaster on that one bug.
You're drawing a straight line.
And if that turns out to be only, say, 50% true, you lose credibility.
Right. But if you say the software bug contributed to the project delays.
Exactly. Now you're being accurate. You're acknowledging the bug was a factor, a partial cause, but you're leaving room for other things, maybe poor management, maybe budget cuts.
Contributing to implies a whole web of causes.
It shows you understand complexity. It's the difference between a scapegoat and a real root cause analysis.
It really paints a picture of a process rather than just an event. And speaking of pictures, Emma and John discussed some great idioms that describe these chain reactions. The first one is the domino effect.
So visual and visceral, everyone knows what this means. You push one tile and physics just takes over. It's perfect for describing situations where one initial trigger sets off this cascade that becomes unstoppable.
The supply chain disruption created a domino effect.
A delayed production across all three factories. It implies that once it started, you couldn't really stop it.
And then there's the slippery slope. Now, I feel like I usually hear this as a logical fallacy.
Yeah.
But in the source, they talk about it as a genuine warning.
It is often used as a fallacy, if we let them do X, next thing you know, the world will end. But in reality, the slippery slope describes momentum. It implies that things are getting progressively worse. And usually, the speed of that decline increases.
The example they used was fitness. Skipping workouts is a slippery slope to getting completely out of shape.
That's the perfect non-fallacy usage. It starts with skipping one Monday because you're tired, no big deal. Then you skip Wednesday because you're busy.
The friction creates less resistance next time.
Exactly. And next thing you know, it's been 3 months, you've lost your footing, and gravity just took over.
That concept of momentum is scary. But there's another concept they touched on which I think is fascinating, especially for anyone in management: unintended consequences.
The Cobra effect. Well, they didn't call it that, but that's the classic economic theory.
Right.
It's the idea that you aim for one result, usually a positive one, but the complexity of the system gives you a different, often negative result that you didn't foresee.
The example from the podcast was about a company introducing new technology to speed up work.
Right. So let's role play that. Management says, we need to be 20% faster. Here is this new complex software. The intention is speed. The cause is the new software. But because the employees aren't trained properly, they get frustrated, they start making workarounds, morale just tanks.
And the effect,
Yeah.
productivity actually drops.
Precisely. That is the unintended consequence. Good intentions, bad result. And being able to label that in a meeting, that is a superpower.
How so?
If you can raise your hand and say, I'm worried about the unintended consequences of this policy on employee retention, you sound incredibly foresightful. You aren't just being negative, you're looking at the second and third order effects.
I love that. It's about seeing the hidden ghosts in the machine.
Right.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, we've talked about external events, rain, traffic, software bugs.
Right.
But the source material takes a fascinating turn into the psychological. How does cause and effect work inside our own heads?
This is where the discussion between Emma and John got really profound. They moved away from physics and into, well, almost metaphysics. They started talking about mindset as a cause.
They introduced the concept of the self-fulfilling prophecy. And John shared a story about his driving test. Now, on the surface, a driving test feels a bit high school.
Oh, but the mechanism is identical.
Right.
It's identical whether you're 17 trying to park a Ford Fiesta or a 50-year-old executive trying to land a merger.
So in the story, John is nervous. He's totally convinced he's going to fail.
Right. And that anxiety, that internal narrative, that is the cause. It's not neutral. It creates physiological changes. Shallow breathing, shaking hands, tunnel vision.
And because of that state,
He stalls the car 3 times. The effect is failure. But the failure wasn't caused by a lack of skill.
he was caused by the expectation of failure.
Exactly. He psyched himself out. But then he goes back for a second try. And this is the key. He changes the input. He visualizes success. He imagines driving perfectly. He generates a feeling of confidence.
And that new cause leads to a new effect. He passes.
Now, just take that into the boardroom. You walk into a pitch meeting thinking, they are going to hate this. We're too expensive. They're going to laugh at us.
So what happens?
You rush the slides. You don't make eye contact. You get defensive when they ask a question. And they sense that weird energy, so they say no.
And you walk out saying, see? I knew they would say no.
But you caused it. Your internal state created the external reality. That is the self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a powerful reminder that we are active participants in the causal chain, not just observers. Which leads perfectly into the idiom they brought up. You reap what you sow.
An old agricultural metaphor, but it has survived for centuries for a reason.
Yep.
You plant or sow the seeds, and eventually you harvest or reap the crops.
It's really about accountability, isn't it? But also about patience.
That's the critical part, the time delay. You don't plant a seed and eat a tomato on the same day.
Right.
In business, you don't treat a client well today and get the contract tomorrow. You sow the relationship now and you reap the contract in Q4.
That delay is the tricky part. We want the effect immediately. And that brings us to the next concept, which I think is my favorite visual from the whole thing. The snowball effect.
Or the cumulative effect.
Yeah, this is vital for anyone trying to learn a new skill or maybe trying to break a bad habit.
Why's that?
Because we tend to judge cause and effect based on what we can see right now.
Emma used the example of learning a language, practicing for 10 minutes a day.
Right. On day 1, you do 10 minutes, the effect, 0. You still can't speak Spanish. On day 10, still nothing visible. It feels like the cause, the practicing is having no effect.
But underneath, the snowball is rolling. It's gathering mass.
Exactly. Over a year, those tiny, invisible causes accumulate into a massive effect, fluency. The snowball starts small at the top of the hill, but the physics of compound interest take over.
But they also pointed out that the snowball rolls both ways. It works for negatives, too.
Unfortunately, yes. The negative example was avoiding the dentist. John's friend Mark.
Poor Mark. I felt this one.
We've all been Mark. The cause was procrastination. Avoiding the checkup. A small inaction. I'll do it next month.
No immediate pain, so no immediate effect.
Right. But the cumulative effect over time turned a tiny cavity into a root canal.
That is such a visceral example of how ignoring a small cause leads to a massive, painful effect. It's like the slippery slope, but hidden from view.
And that actually leads us to one of the most advanced high-level phrases in our toolkit today. If we were writing a report on Mark's dental disaster or a business failure, we could use the phrase attributable to.
Ooh, attributable to. That sounds expensive. That sounds like a consultant wrote it.
It is described as C1 level, which is advanced proficiency. When you say something is attributable to X, you are implying a direct, undeniable link. It's stronger than due to.
It's more analytical.
Very analytical.
So the company's sudden growth is attributable to the new viral marketing campaign.
Exactly. It removes ambiguity. It's you, as the expert, saying, I have analyzed the data and I am assigning the credit here. It sounds very decisive.
So we've got this incredible vocabulary. We understand the psychology. We know about the snowball and the slippery slope. But what does this all mean for us practically?
Yeah, how do we use this?
How do we use this logic to make better choices?
Well, the source material wraps up with a really practical application: decision-making. John uses this logic to decide whether or not to take a marketing course.
I loved this part because it took the emotion out of it. He was worried about the time commitment. He was stressing out.
Right, I don't have time, I'm too busy. Worry is emotional. Cause and effect is logical. So he just mapped it out like an equation.
Scenario A, cause, taking the course. Effect, better skills. Confidence, maybe a better job, higher salary.
Scenario B, cause, not taking the course. Effect, stagnation. No new skills. Same job, same salary.
When you lay it out like that, the choice becomes, well, obvious.
That's the power of this deep dive. By clearly mapping out the cause and effect, the decision stops being a vague anxiety about, do I have time, and becomes a calculation of value. Is the effect, better career, worth the cause, the time investment?
It turns a vague anxiety into a clear equation. It's the ROI of logic.
Precisely. And that's really the mission here. We want you to start seeing things as just stuff happening and start seeing the mechanics.
Because when you see the mechanics, you can change the outcome.
You got it.
So let's do a quick recap of the toolkit we've built today. We started with the decision to upgrade our linguistic resolution.
We moved away from the passive so and because. We upgraded to resulted in for that objective managerial detachment.
We added due to and owing to for when we need to sound formal and authoritative, the clipboard test.
We discussed logical connectors like therefore to build unbreakable arguments. And then we got into the nuance, contributing to as the ultimate liability hedge when things go wrong.
We visualized the domino effect and the slippery slope to talk about momentum. And we warned against unintended consequences, the cobra effect in the workplace.
And finally, we looked inward at the self-fulfilling prophecy and the snowball effect. The idea that our internal states and small daily habits are causes that are constantly shaping our future effects.
It's a massive toolkit. Even just picking one or two of these, maybe swapping resulted in into your next email, can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
Absolutely. It changes you from a passenger to a driver.
Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We talked about the unintended consequences in business and the snowball effect in habits.
So here's the question I'd like you to consider today. Where are you seeing a snowball effect happening in your life right now that you haven't noticed yet?
That is a great question. Is there a small habit you're doing every day, good or bad, that is silently gathering mass? Are you planting seeds that you actually want to harvest later?
Or are you ignoring a small cause, like a little bit of burnout, or a small friction with a colleague that might lead to a root canal-sized effect down the road?
Cause and effect is happening whether you watch it or not. Better keep an eye on it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. Go out there and create some positive effects.
See you next time. You know, I was sitting in a meeting last week, one of those quarterly reviews that feels like it's going to last for, 3 geological eras. And I was listening to our VP of marketing.
Oh, no. I know where this is going.
Right. He was trying to explain a dip in sales. And he was using so many words. I mean, the air was just thick with becauses and due tos. And, consequently, it was like a blizzard of connectors.
The classic corporate filler bingo card. I know it well. You probably could have ticked off every box.
I absolutely did. But the funny thing was, despite all that talking, despite the sheer volume of syllables, I left that room having zero clue why the sales actually dropped. He had, technically explained it, grammatically the sentences functioned, but he hadn't actually communicated the root cause.
He hadn't told a story, he just listed facts.
Exactly. And it got me thinking about how much of our lives we spend just trying to explain why things happen. From, the toddler holding a broken vase to the CEO looking at a broken stock price. We're just obsessed with cause and effect.
It's the fundamental narrative of human existence, isn't it? A happened, so B happened. It sounds so simple on the surface. We think of it as this clean, straight line.
It sounds simple, but today we're going to argue that it is anything but simple. We're taking a look at a really fascinating session that focuses on advanced English communication.
And just to be clear from the start, we aren't talking about basic grammar drills here.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. We aren't talking about subject-verb agreement or how to order a coffee or, ask where the library is.
No, this is about the black belt level.
Yeah.
We're looking at material that's designed to take you from a functional B2 level where you can get by, order your meal, maybe stumble through a presentation.
Right. You're surviving.
Exactly. You're surviving.
Yeah.
And it's designed to get you to a C1 or even a C2 level of mastery.
And I think for the listeners wondering, does that actually matter? As long as I'm understood, who cares?
Yeah.
What is the real gap there? Is it just showing off with fancy words?
It's so much more than showing off. It's a massive canyon in terms of perception. Think of it this way. Functional English is about survival. It's about being a passenger in the conversation. You understand where the car is going, and you can nod along.
Okay.
Mastery, that C1, C2 level, is about being the driver. It's about control. The material we're digging into today suggests that the specific words you choose to explain why something happened can completely change how people perceive your intelligence, your authority, and even the reality of the events themselves.
That's a big claim. You're saying grammar can change reality.
I'm saying language frames reality. It's the lens you look through. If you use the wrong verb, for instance, you might accidentally blame yourself for a mistake that wasn't your fault. Or, you might sound unsure when you actually have the data to back you up. It's about nuance. It's about precision.
And honestly, it's about critical thinking, which is really the core of it. So the mission for this deep dive is to equip everyone listening with a toolkit. We want to get you to move beyond the word because.
And look, because is a perfectly fine word. I use it every single day. We all do. But it's a blunt instrument. It's a hammer.
Right.
And sometimes you don't need a hammer. Sometimes you need a scalpel or paintbrush. If you treat every situation like a nail, you're going to break some things.
I love that. So we've got a stack of tools to get through today. We're going to look at what the source calls the engines of sentences, the verbs. We're going to deconstruct the logic traps of superstition. And we have a great story about lucky socks coming up later that I think everyone will relate to.
The lucky socks are a personal favorite of mine. It really exposes how our brains are wired to see patterns that aren't there.
And we're even going to do some time travel.
Time travel. Okay, I'm intrigued.
That's what I'm calling conditionals today. Just sounds way cooler than grammar structures.
I'll allow it. It is cooler.
And finally, we'll hit some fluency hacks that native speakers use to speed up their speech without even realizing they're doing it. But let's start with the engine.
The engine, I like that.
When the source material talks about the engine of a sentence, they're talking about verbs. And they make a really aggressive point right out of the gate. They basically say, stop relying on connectors.
Right. So think back to when you learned English in school. You probably had a textbook and there was a chapter called linking words and you just memorized a list. Due to, consequently, as a result of, therefore.
Oh, God, I can see the worksheet in my head right now. Fill in the blank. The bus was late. I was late.
Exactly. And look, those are correct. They're not grammatically wrong. If you write, the game was canceled due to rain, that is perfect English. No one will ever correct you on that, but it's static.
Cat-a-cow.
Well, those words, due to, because they are just glue. They stick two ideas together, but they don't tell you anything about the nature of the connection. They just say, these two things are related.
So it's like saying A is connected to B, but not saying if they are holding hands, or if A is punching B in the face, or I don't know, if A gave birth to B.
That is a very vivid way to put it. But yes, that's exactly it. The insight here is that the verb itself should carry the weight of the cause and effect. You don't need the glue if the pieces fit together perfectly on their own.
And the source material highlights 3 specific verbs that do this. The powerhouse verbs.
That's right. They replace because with something much more precise. They are stem from, spark, and trigger.
Okay, let's unpack stem from first. This one really stuck out to me because of the imagery. It feels very organic.
It is organic. It's deliberately botanical.
Yeah, stem, root. It makes you think of a plant growing in the garden. You can almost see it.
And that metaphor isn't just decoration, it's the instruction manual for how to use the word. When you say something stems from something else, you are implying a deep-seated origin. You aren't just saying A caused B. You're saying A is the root system that allowed B to grow over time.
So it implies a history, a process.
A long, slow process. It's not for things that happen in an instant. It suggests complexity, that the cause is buried deep in the past and has been influencing the present for a while.
Okay, so give me a context where this works better than just saying because.
Well, let's look at the example from the session. His insecurity stems from a lack of positive feedback in his childhood.
Oof, yeah, that's heavy.
It is, but look at what that verb is doing. Now, imagine if I said, he is insecure because he didn't get positive feedback.
It sounds flatter. It sounds like a simple fact, almost dismissive in a way, like, oh, that's the reason, moving on.
Right, but his insecurity stems from, sounds analytical, it sounds diagnostic, it implies a process, the lack of feedback was the soil, and the insecurity grew out of it slowly year after year.
So it sounds like something a psychologist would say, or maybe a historian.
100%. It's fantastic for historical contests or sociology. The current economic crisis stems from policies enacted 10 years ago. You see? It implies a long timeline. It implies that if you want to fix the crisis, you can't just deal with what's happening today. You have to look at the roots.
That's a key distinction. If I say the problem stems from X, I'm implying that X is still there, underground, feeding the problem. It hasn't gone away.
Exactly. You're identifying the source, the origin point. It's a very powerful way to frame an argument because it suggests you've done a deep analysis.
So if I'm in a meeting and I want to sound like I've really analyzed the deep history of a problem, stem from is my go-to.
Precisely. It gives you authority. It shows you aren't just reacting to the surface. You've actually dug down to see what's going on underneath.
But I assume you wouldn't use it for something quick then, like the car crash stemmed from the ice on the road.
You could, but it sounds a bit too poetic or slow for a car crash, doesn't it? A car crash is violent and fast. Stem from is for things that linger, that develop.
Which brings us perfectly to the second verb. Spark. You mentioned stem from is slow growth. Spark feels like the complete opposite.
It is the opposite energy. If stem from is a tree slowly growing over decades, spark is a match thrown into a pile of dry leaves soaked in gasoline.
Fire imagery. Instantly.
Pure volatility. Spark implies speed, high energy, and usually a reaction that is a bit out of control. It's sudden.
The example they gave was the controversial announcement sparked a fierce debate.
See the difference? Try swapping the verbs there. The announcement stemmed a debate.
No, that sounds completely weird. Like the debate grew slowly over 20 years because of one announcement. It doesn't work.
Exactly. It kills the drama. Spark tells the listener that the reaction was immediate, explosive, and probably very public. It's a word for chaos.
I feel like I see this in news headlines all the time. Protest sparks riot. CEO's tweet sparks outrage.
Oh, journalists love Spark. It's dramatic, it's short, it fits in the headline. But for our listeners, this is really useful in a business context too.
How so?
Let's say you're describing a marketing campaign that went viral, either for good or bad reasons. You wouldn't say, the campaign made a lot of conversation. It sounds so weak. Yeah. You'd say the campaign sparked a global conversation.
It makes the campaign sound powerful, like it had this kinetic energy that it unleashed on the world.
Right. It suggests the situation was already volatile, maybe the market was ready for something new, or people were already angry about an issue. And this one event was the ignition point. It's about potential energy suddenly turning into kinetic energy.
That's a great way of thinking about it. So stem from is for deep, slow analysis. Spark is for sudden, explosive reactions. That brings us to the third one, which I think is the trickiest of the three, trigger.
Trigger is interesting because it sits somewhere in the middle, but it adds this layer of mechanical precision.
When you say mechanical, you mean like a machine?
I mean, literally. Think about what a trigger actually is. It's a mechanism on a gun or a trap. You pull the little metal lever, and a specific predetermined sequence of events occurs. Click, bang. There is no negotiating with the trigger. Once it's pulled, the result happens.
So it's about cause and effect being locked together. An almost automatic response.
In a way, yes. It's about a catalyst. The source gave two contexts, and I think we need to look at both to really get it. One is the literal mechanical one. The loud noise triggered the alarm.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The noise happens, the mechanism trips, the alarm sounds. It's automatic. There's no emotion, just a process.
But then there's the psychological context, which is where it gets really powerful. Certain smells can trigger vivid memories.
That's a classic one.
Yeah.
I think everyone has experienced that. You smell, I don't know, crayons, and suddenly you're 6 years old again in kindergarten.
Or the smell of tequila makes you feel sick because of that one night in college.
Sorry.
Lars, let's not talk about that night. But yes, exactly. And notice why trigger works so well there. It's not just that the smell made the memory happen. It acted as a specific key that unlocked that specific memory. It's precise.
It's an involuntary response. You don't choose to have the memory. The smell bypasses your conscious thought and just activates it.
I've heard this used in medical contexts too, like stress triggers a migraine.
Yes, that is a perfect example. We don't say stress sparks a migraine because a migraine isn't a public riot. It's a personal biological event.
And you wouldn't say a migraine stems from stress.
Well, you could if you meant the general condition over years, like my tendency to get migraines stems from a stressful job I had a decade ago. But if you mean I got stressed at 2 p.m. and had a headache at 2:1 p.m., you use trigger. It's the immediate mechanism.
Okay, so to recap this whole engine section, because I want to make sure I've got this straight in my head. If I want to discuss origins, history, and the deep roots of a long-term issue, I'm using stem from.
Correct. You're being the historian.
If I want to describe a sudden, volatile, maybe even emotional public reaction, I'm using spark.
Yes, you're being the journalist.
And if I want to describe a specific, almost automatic mechanism like A pushes the button and B happens, whether it's mechanical or psychological, I use trigger.
You've got it. You're being the scientist or the psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Notice what you've just done. In all those explanations, you've deleted due to, because, and as a result of. And in doing so, you didn't just make the sentences fancier, you made them more descriptive. You gave the listener more information about the nature of the reality you are describing.
That's the C1 level up right there.
Yeah,
It's not about using big words to sound smart. It's about using the right word to be clear.
exactly. But, and there's a big but coming here.
Uh-oh. I knew there was a catch. It couldn't be that simple.
Having these power verbs is great, but they are dangerous if you don't know how to think about cause and effect logically. You can use perfect grammar and still be completely wrong about why things are happening.
This is the correlation versus causation trap.
This is where we leave the grammar book and enter the logic class, because frankly, a lot of people, even native speakers, even executives in those boardrooms, mess this up constantly.
The trap is assuming that just because two things happen at the same time, or one after the other, that one must have caused the other.
The classic logical fallacy, post hoc ergo propter hoc, which is just a fancy Latin way of saying after this, therefore because of this.
The source material has a great, slightly ridiculous anecdote about this involving lucky socks.
The lucky socks. We have to talk about the socks. It's the perfect illustration.
So the story goes, a guy, let's call him Dave, wears his lucky blue socks to watch a football match. His team wins. Dave, who is a rational human being in every other aspect of his life, suddenly decides that the socks caused the win.
Which, unless we are admitting magic into the conversation,
Right.
or unless the socks were so brightly colored they blinded the opposing goalie, is scientifically impossible.
But we do this all the time. Maybe not with socks, but in business. We launched the new logo on Tuesday. Sales went up on Wednesday. Therefore, the new logo caused the sales increase.
The logo fallacy. It's the bane of data analysts everywhere. It is so easy to fall into that trap. Your brain is a pattern matching machine. You see two lines on a graph going up at the same time, and your brain desperately wants to connect them. It craves a narrative. The logo is magic.
When reality...
In reality, maybe the market just went up that day. Maybe a competitor went bankrupt. Maybe it was payday for most of the country. There could be 100 other reasons.
Exactly. And that's where you can get into real trouble. If you stand up and claim causation, if you say the logo triggered the sales spike, when there's only correlation, you lose credibility. You look amateurish. So this toolkit needs to provide ways to reframe that narrative.
You need language that decouples the events. So instead of saying the socks made them win, what do we say? How do we describe what happened accurately?
We focus on the timing, not the force. The source says we should use the phrase coinciding with. So Dave wearing the socks is coinciding with the win.
Coinciding with, it sounds so much more objective, doesn't it? It acknowledges the pattern. Yes, the socks were there. Yes, the team won, but it deliberately strips away that magical, unproven causal link.
The source also suggests some other skeptical phrasing. I love this because it makes you sound very professional and cautious. Things like, There is no evidence of a direct link.
That is such a power phrase in a meeting. Imagine you're in that boardroom again. Someone is getting all excited about a trend that might just be random noise. You can step in and say, while the trends are similar, at this point, we have no evidence of a direct link.
You instantly become the voice of reason, the adult in the room.
You do. You sound thoughtful, not just reactive. Another one is describing events as likely just coincidental.
Yeah, coincidental. It's a great safety word. It protects you from making false assumptions.
And it's important to note, this isn't just about grammar. This is about professional integrity. If you go around claiming that everything sparks and triggers everything else, when in reality things are just coinciding, you're going to be wrong a lot of the time. And eventually, people just stop listening to you.
So the advanced speaker knows when to use the strong verbs for impact, but also knows when not to use them to maintain accuracy.
Precisely. Restraint is also a sign of mastery. Knowing when to say, I don't know if X caused Y, is just as important as knowing how to say X triggered Y.
Okay, that is a huge point. So let's get back to the grammar mechanics. We've covered the engines, we've covered the logic. Now I want to talk about time travel.
You really are sticking with this time travel branding, aren't you?
I am. I'm committed. Because conditionals sounds like a chapter in a dusty textbook that makes me want to take a nap. But time travel grammar sounds like a superpower.
Fair enough. And in a way, it is a superpower. Conditionals are basically our way of rewriting reality in our heads. We look at the timeline of our lives, we find a point, we imagine changing it, and then we explore what would happen next.
The source highlights two specific types that are essential for advanced expression. First, there's the standard third conditional. This is the classic regret structure.
Usually, yes. It's often used for regret or for analyzing past mistakes. The structure is a hypothetical past cause leading to a hypothetical past result. The classic example is always something like, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the test.
Let's break that down for a second. If I had studied, that's the past perfect tense, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It refers to a time in the past, the time before the test. The reality is you didn't study. But in this sentence, you are creating an alternate timeline, a different reality where you did study.
And then the result, I would have passed.
Also in the past. The test is over. In reality, you failed. But in this alternate timeline you've just created, you passed.
So both the cause and the effect are locked in history. I didn't study. I didn't pass. End of story. There's a closed loop in the past.
Right. It's purely looking backward. It's great for analyzing past mistakes or analyzing history in general. If the government had acted sooner, the crisis would have been avoided. It's all hypothetical and contained in the past.
But then we have the mixed conditional, and the source calls this the C1 level up. This is where it gets a little bit trippy.
The mixed conditional is fascinating because it breaks that closed loop. It connects a past cause to a present result.
This is the butterfly effect grammar. A small change in the past, creating a different today.
Laughs. In a way, yes. It's a powerful tool for showing how history impacts the now.
The example given in the source was, if I hadn't taken that marketing course last month, I wouldn't be so confident today.
Look at the shift in time there. The cause taking the course is finished. It's back in last month. It's done and dusted. But the effect, the feeling of confidence is happening right now, in this very moment.
I wouldn't be so confident.
Ah.
That's present tense.
Exactly. I would not be. I would not have been. It connects the past to the present.
Why is this distinction so important? Why can't I just use the past tense for everything and say, if I hadn't taken the course, I wouldn't have been confident?
Because often the result isn't over. Your confidence isn't a past event. It's a current state of being. The structure is incredibly useful for things like job interviews or performance reviews. You aren't just listing your past achievements, you are drawing a direct line between your past actions and your current value to the company.
Can you give me an example of that? Like, how would I actually use this in an interview?
Sure. Let's say you're applying for a leadership role. You could say, if I hadn't led that difficult crisis team last year, I wouldn't be as prepared for this kind of management role as I am now.
Oh, that is strong. Much better than just saying, I led a crisis team.
See what it does? It proves growth. It tells the interviewer, my past experience directly created my current ability. It's not just a fact on your resume, it's a living skill.
It connects the dots for them. It shows a sophisticated understanding of cause and effect across time.
And it creates a narrative of continuous development. You can even use it for mistakes. If I hadn't made that mistake on the Q2 report, I wouldn't be so careful with the data today. It turns a negative from the past into a positive current trait.
So third conditional for pure past analysis. It happened, it's over, let's look back. mixed conditional for showing how the past created the present. It happened, and here's the result standing in front of you.
You've absolutely got it. It's a subtle shift in grammar, but it's a huge shift in meaning. Native speakers use this constantly to explain who they are and how they got here.
Now, let's add some flair. Let's add some drama. We're going to talk about inversion.
Inversion. This is where we start moving from purely functional English to literary English. It's about style. It's about, as you might say, putting on a tuxedo.
I like that. So when do I wear this grammatical tuxedo?
You wear it when you want to sound authoritative, formal, or when you want to tell a really gripping story. You probably wouldn't use this to order a burger at McDonald's.
Had I known you had nuggets, my order would have been different.
Exactly. You'd get some very weird looks from the staff. But in a boardroom, in a formal speech, absolutely.
The trick here is dropping the word if, right? That's the main change.
Right. In a standard conditional sentence, we rely heavily on if I had known, if she had seen. It's the standard flag that says, hypothetical situation coming. Inversion gets rid of that flag.
So how do we do it? How do we invert it?
We delete the if, and then we flip the subject and the auxiliary verb.
That sounds a bit technical. Walk me through it with an example. Let's use if I had known about the traffic.
Okay, so you take if I had known, first delete if, now you have I had known, then you flip I and had.
So it becomes had I known.
Exactly. Had I known about the traffic, I would have left earlier.
It sounds so much more formal. Had I known. It sounds like something a lawyer would say in a courtroom drama.
It immediately elevates the register. It demands a bit more attention from the listener. You often hear this in formal speeches or legal contexts. Had the defendant been aware of the risks, this tragedy could have been avoided.
But it's not just for lawyers. It can also be used for storytelling, can't it?
Absolutely. Especially with negative adverbs, the source brings up a fantastic phrase, little did I know.
I love that phrase. It's the classic start to a crazy story. I walked into the office that morning, same as any other day. Little did I know the bear was right behind me.
Exactly. Think about the grammar there. The normal sentence would be, I knew little, or I didn't know much. But you are inverting it. Little did I know.
It builds suspense. It's a promise to the listener that something unexpected is coming.
It does. Now let's try to combine it with our verbs from part 1. How about this? Little did I know that my offhand comment would spark such an argument.
Oh, look at that. You combine the inversion, little did I know, with the strong verb spark.
Yeah.
That's layering the techniques.
That's the goal. When you start stacking these tools, your English becomes incredibly rich and expressive. Little did I know sets up the surprise. It emphasizes that you were completely unaware of the cause and effect that was about to unfold.
It makes you a storyteller, not just a reporter of facts. I didn't know is boring. Little did I know is a hook.
It pulls the listener in. It signals, pay attention, something interesting is about to happen.
So inversion is our drama tool. Use it for emphasis, use it for formality, use it for suspense.
Just don't use it for nuggets.
Deal. Okay, we have covered verbs, logic, time travel, and drama. Now we need to talk about speed. The efficiency hack, as the source calls it.
Participle clauses. This is the secret weapon for fluency and for sounding, well, more like a native speaker.
The goal here is to get rid of the clunky stuff, right?
Right.
The because, the so, the repetitive subjects.
Precisely. When you are learning English, you are taught to build sentences like train cars, one after the other, linked by couplers. Because I was feeling tired, that's one car. I went to bed, that's the second car. You have a connector, a subject, a verb, a comma, another subject, another verb.
It works. It gets the job done. But it's slow. It feels plodding, a bit mechanical.
It's clunky. Native speakers, when they're speaking fast or writing efficiently, they slice off the front of that train. Participle clauses let you turn a whole clause like, because I was feeling tired, into a simple two-word phrase. Feeling tired.
Feeling tired, I went to bed.
It's so much smoother. See how much faster that is? The listener understands the cause, the tiredness, immediately without needing the word because.
It's like chopping vegetables. If you're a professional chef, you don't lift the knife high up in the air for every single chop. You just do these tiny, efficient movements. Chop, chop, chop.
That is a great analogy. It's about economy of movement. It's about flow state.
The source gave another great example. Not knowing the answer, she remained silent.
Instead of the much longer, because she didn't know the answer, she remained silent. It's quicker. It flows better. It packs more information into fewer syllables.
But there's a nuance here too, isn't there? That was an ing clause. But the source also mentions the having clause.
Ah, yes, the perfect participle, using having done something.
This one feels a bit more specific. When do I use having instead of just the ing form?
You use having done something to very clearly emphasize that the first action was 100% finished before the second one started. It creates a clear, undeniable sequence of events.
The example in the source was, well, it was typical for this particular source. Having finished his work, he went to the pub.
Yes, the pub seems to be a recurring character in these grammatical examples. Very British.
But the grammar is solid, having finished.
It implies he didn't just stop working. The work was completed. The report was sent. The laptop was closed. Then and only then did he get up and go to the pub.
So if I said, finishing his work, he went to the pub, that sounds like he was maybe working while he was walking to the pub,
Right.
or sending the last email from his phone on the way.
Potentially, yes. Or that the actions happen almost at the same time. Having finished creates a clear gap. Step 1 is done. Step 2 begins. There's no overlap.
This sounds incredibly useful for professional emails and reports.
It is. Having analyzed the data, we decided to pivot the strategy. That is a C-suite sentence right there.
It really is. It sounds professional, efficient, and decisive. No wasted words.
And that's really the theme of all these tools, isn't it? Efficiency, precision, and control over the narrative.
It is. We've gone from toddler level because to C-suite level, having analyzed. That is a massive journey in communication skill.
It's the difference between describing a drawing you made and actually painting a masterpiece in front of someone.
So let's do a quick review of the toolkit we've just unpacked for everyone listening. We started with the engine, the strong verbs.
Right. We replaced made it happen with stem from for talking about deep roots in history. We used spark for those explosive, volatile reactions. And we used trigger for precise, mechanical catalysts.
Then we put on our skeptical glasses for the logic check.
We learned to distinguish correlation from causation. We learned to spot the lucky socks fallacy and the logo fallacy, and to use phrases like coinciding with and no evidence of a direct link to protect our professional reputation.
Then we did some time travel with our friend, the conditional.
Specifically, the mixed conditional, using the past to explain the present. If I hadn't done X in the past, I wouldn't be Y today.
We added some drama with inversion.
Putting on the tuxedo with had I known and little did I know to sound more formal, literary, or suspenseful.
And finally, the fluency hack.
Participle clauses, feeling tired or having finished to smooth out the flow of your sentences and remove those clunky connectors.
That is a massive upgrade from just saying, because this happened, that happened.
It's a completely different level of communication. It's about moving from just being understood to being truly influential.
So here's the challenge for you listening right now. We don't want you to just nod along and think, oh, that's interesting. We want you to actually try this.
Pick one tool, just one. Don't try to use all 5 in one sentence or you'll sound insane.
Right. Having stemmed from the spark, had I known, no, don't do that.
Exactly. Just pick one. Maybe this week, instead of writing if I knew, try writing had I known in an email. Or try using stem from when you're explaining a problem to a friend. You know, I think this issue stems from a lack of communication. See how it feels.
Don't just settle for the easy way, for the word because. Push the boundaries of your own expression.
Absolutely. Language is a muscle. You have to flex it to make it stronger.
You know, before we go, I have one final thought I want to throw out there.
Yeah.
We've been talking about grammar and structure all this time, but it strikes me that this is really about responsibility and blame.
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. If I say the argument happened because of his comment, that's passive. It's just sort of a turd. The blame is vague. But if I say his comment sparked the argument, I'm assigning a very specific kind of volatile energy to his action. I'm saying he lit the match. The responsibility is clear.
That's true. You're making him the agent of chaos.
Exactly. Or if I say the argument stemmed from his insecurity, I'm shifting the blame away from the comment and onto his history. I'm saying, don't blame the comment, blame the root cause. It almost excuses the comment itself.
That's a profound point to end on. Language doesn't just describe the world, it frames how we judge it. How you construct your cause and effect determines who is the hero, who is the villain, and who is just a victim of circumstance.
Something to mull over the next time you're about to use the word because.
Indeed. Choose your verbs wisely. They carry more weight than you think.
That's it for this deep dive into advanced English. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are doing something that I frankly didn't think was possible.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
We're taking a stack of materials that, on the surface, looks like maybe the driest, most academic thing we have ever covered. I mean, it's a file that looks like it belongs in a high school classroom or, maybe a university linguistics lecture.
It does have that look. It's technically the third and final chapter of a series on cause and effect in English grammar.
Right. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm out, I do not need a lecture on conjunctions or how to use the word because or therefore, I want you just hit pause on that thought for a second.
Please do.
Because, and this is where it gets really interesting, once you peel back the layers of this source material, this isn't about grammar at all.
No, not even close. Not in the way we usually think of grammar.
It is about survival. It is about office politics. It's about, well, the art of keeping your job when everything around you is basically burning down.
It really is. It's about the difference between being correct in a textbook sense and being, employed in a real world sense.
Exactly. We are moving way beyond the basics here. We aren't talking about the cup fell because I pushed it.
No.
We are entering the realm of high-level diplomacy. We're talking about strategy. We're talking about how to deliver absolutely terrible news without getting fired and how to talk about disasters without taking the blame for them.
It's the art of nuance. The source material we're looking at today, it suggests that advanced communication isn't just about following rules, it's about controlling the narrative.
It's controlling the narrative.
It's about social engineering through syntax.
I love that phrase, social engineering through syntax. It sounds almost weaponized.
Well, in a way it is.
Because we've all been there.
Right.
You're in a meeting, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. Maybe a deadline was missed, a server crashed, whatever, and you have to explain it.
The spotlight is on you.
It is. And if you use the wrong words, you're suddenly pointing fingers and you're making enemies.
Or worse, you're pointing the finger directly at yourself when maybe you shouldn't be.
Right. But if you use the right words, suddenly you're not the villain. You're a thoughtful professional analyzing a complex situation.
Precisely. The source material implies that all the previous steps in learning, the basics of grammar, that's just the foundation. Today's mission is to explore how language shapes our professional relationships.
It's about the why.
It's about the why behind the words we choose when the stakes are really, really high.
And the stakes are high. This is not just about passing a test. It is, like we said, about workplace survival. The core problem the source highlights is navigating blame and credit. How do you discuss delays, errors, catastrophes without becoming the villain of the story?
And the solution offered is this concept of nuance. It's a toolkit, really, for being polite, strategic, and professional, especially when things go wrong.
A toolkit, I like that.
It's about distancing yourself from the negative while still maintaining, accuracy.
So let's unpack this toolkit. We have a lot of ground to cover. We've got hedging, we have the vocabulary of consequence, we've got the very controversial passive voice, and something called nominalization.
Yep.
Let's start with the first big concept the source introduces, hedging.
Hedging.
Now, when I hear hedging, I think of finance, hedge funds, protecting your money. Or maybe I think of gardening, trimming the bushes. But what does it mean in this context?
In linguistics and high-level communication, hedging is essentially, and the source describes it so vividly, it's like putting a fence around your sentence.
A fence around your sentence. I love that visual. Okay, but let's dig into that metaphor. What is the fence doing? Is it keeping people out? Is it keeping you in? What's its job?
It's primarily protecting the speaker. Think about it this way. In the wild, you build a fence to keep predators out, right?
Right.
In a conversation, the predators are the people waiting for you to make a mistake. They're the people just waiting to say, but you were wrong, or you accused me of something.
A gotcha moment. We all know that person.
Exactly, the gotcha moment. If you make a direct, unhedged statement like X caused Y, you are making a claim of absolute fact. You are standing out in an open field, completely exposed.
No cover.
None. And if you turn out to be wrong, or if that statement offends someone powerful, you have no cover. You're totally vulnerable.
So the fence is a safety buffer. It's a protection zone.
It is. The fence of hedging protects you from sounding too dogmatic, too accusatory, or, 100% certain when certainty is actually really dangerous.
This is fascinating because I think we are so often taught that confidence is the key. Be direct, be bold. But the source is kind of saying, hang on, be careful.
Well, confidence is key, but blind confidence is reckless. In a complex environment, especially in a business, rarely is one single thing solely responsible for another. There are always multiple factors, and admitting that complexity hedging against the unknown is actually a sign of higher intelligence. It's not a weakness.
Okay, let's look at the practical application here, because the source gives a great example that I think everyone can relate to. The dreaded marketing delay.
Oh, yeah. We've all been in this meeting.
We have. The scenario is a business meeting. A big project is late. The deadline has sailed past. The client is unhappy. Everyone is sitting around the big table looking for a reason.
Looking for a throat to choke.
Yes. And you know the reason. Or you think you know the reason.
That's a key distinction. You think you know.
Right. In your head, you're thinking, the marketing team didn't send the assets on time. That's it. That's the whole reason we're late.
So the instinctive way, the maybe honest or direct way to say it would be, the marketing team caused the delay. Boom.
Subject, verb, object, done.
Direct cause and effect. Simple, clear.
And according to our source, a complete disaster.
An absolute disaster. You've just walked into a minefield.
But why? I mean, if they caused the delay, isn't that just the truth? Shouldn't we speak the truth in a business meeting?
Well, it might be the truth, but it's a combative truth. Think about the social dynamic in that room. You have just pointed a finger, a very sharp finger, directly across the table.
Right.
You have assigned 100% of the blame. You've effectively put the marketing director on trial in front of everyone.
And nobody likes being put on trial. Especially not in public.
No.
Yeah.
So what happens? Immediate defensiveness kicks in. The marketing team is now your enemy. You've burned a bridge.
You need them for the next project, too.
Of course you do. And more importantly, what if you're wrong? What if you're even just a little bit wrong? What if marketing didn't send the assets because the legal department didn't approve them in time?
Ah.
Now you don't just look like a jerk. You look like a jerk and an idiot who didn't have all the facts.
Okay, so that's the unhedged nightmare scenario. I am sold. Let's look at the hedged approach the source suggests. This is the sentence with a nice safe fence around it.
Okay.
Instead of the marketing team caused the delay, they suggest this. It appears that the delay may have been linked to the marketing strategy.
Just listen to that. It's a completely different sentence.
It's so different. It's longer. It's not as punchy.
It's not meant to be punchy. It's meant to be safe. Let's break that down because there is a tremendous amount of work happening in that one sentence. It's like a masterclass in diplomacy.
Okay, let's do it. So, first part. It appears that.
It appears that. You aren't saying it is.
No.
You are saying, from my perspective, based on the evidence I currently have, this is what it looks like. You are explicitly stating that this is an observation, not necessarily an absolute undeniable fact.
And it's escape hatch.
It is.
Yeah.
That's the first plank of the fence. If it turns out legal was the problem, you can say, well, it appeared to be marketing at the time, but I see now we didn't have all the data.
You haven't lied.
You haven't lied at all. You've just stated your perception, which was true at the time.
Okay, I love that. So, next part of the sentence. May have been.
This is a double hedge, a second layer of fence. Not was linked to, but may have been linked to.
So you're not even sure about the link.
Exactly. Again, you're just dialing back the certainty. You are softening the blow. You are suggesting a probability, not a certainty.
And finally, the phrase that I think does the most heavy lifting here, linked to.
Oh, this is the crucial shift. Caused by is a mechanic. It's a direct arrow from A to B. A shot B.
Right.
Linked to suggests a relationship, a correlation, a connection. But it's much, much vaguer.
It's like saying they were in the same neighborhood at the time of the crime, but not necessarily that one of them mugged the other.
That's a perfect analogy. Yes, it spreads the responsibility out into the ether rather than pinning it like a medal of shame on a specific person's chest.
It's amazing how much work those little words are doing. It appears that may have been linked to. It sounds so much more professional. It sounds collaborative.
It creates distance. You aren't the accuser anymore. You're just an observer noting a potential connection. And that invites the marketing team to explain themselves rather than forcing them to defend themselves.
That's a key distinction. Explain versus defend.
A huge one. If you say, you caused this, I have to put my shield up and defend my position.
Right.
If you say, it appears this may be linked to your strategy, I can lean in and explain, well, actually, that's interesting you say that. The strategy was held up by legal. Let me walk you through the timeline.
And now you're problem solving together.
Now we're having a conversation, not a fight. The whole energy in the room changes.
The source also gives us a specific vocabulary list for this uncertainty, a kind of hedging toolkit. We've got words like presumably, potentially, and arguably.
These are the power tools of hedging. You use these to build really strong fences.
Let's talk about arguably. The source highlights this one specifically. They give the example, this is arguably the root cause. Now, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I used to hate this word.
Oh, really? Why?
It just felt so wishy-washy to me. Like, either you know or you don't. Make a decision.
A lot of people feel that way. They think hedging in general makes you sound weak or unsure. But arguably is actually a power move.
A power move. How is saying, I might be wrong, a power move?
Because you aren't saying, I don't know. You are saying, I have a very strong opinion, and I can make a damn good argument for it, but I'm also smart enough to know that I might not have all the angles.
Ah, okay.
It frames the statement not as a rigid, unchangeable fact, but as a proposition, a strong one. It signals intellectual humility.
So it invites collaboration, not conflict.
Exactly. It changes the dynamic of the room from a courtroom where there's a winner and a loser to a seminar where we're all trying to find the best answer.
That's a great way to put it.
You sound like a thinker, not a dictator. And in a room full of smart people, the person who invites debate usually commands more respect in the long run than the person who shuts it down.
That makes so much sense. It's like your confidence is so strong that you're not afraid of being challenged on it.
Precisely. You're saying, bring your best argument, let's discuss.
Now, that's all about softening the blow. That's the defensive strategy. But the source material pivots in the next section. Sometimes you can't hedge. Sometimes things are just bad, and you need to communicate how bad they are.
Yeah, you can't be subtle all the time.
We're moving from the soft language of hedging to the hard reality of consequences.
Right. If the building is on fire, you don't say, it appears the building is arguably warm.
Potentially there is smoke. No. You need gravity. You need weight.
You need to escalate the language to match the situation.
And the source contrasts the word consequence, which they note can actually be neutral or even positive, with some much heavier alternatives. The heavy hitters, repercussions, and ramifications.
These are words that carry serious weight. You don't use them for spilled coffee. You don't use them for a typo in an internal email.
No, these are break glass in case of emergency words.
For sure.
Let's dig into ramifications. The source defines this in a really interesting way. It's not just a result. It implies something complex, long-term, and crucially unwanted.
Think about the etymology there. Ramification comes from the Latin word for branch, ramus, like the branches of a tree or the branches of a nervous system.
So it's not a straight line. It's not A leads to B.
No. It suggests a branching out, a spreading complexity. It's like a crack in a windshield. It starts at one point and then spiders out in all these directions you didn't expect.
That's a great image. So if I say in a meeting, if we miss this deadline, the ramifications for the company could be severe, I'm saying a lot more than just, we will be late.
Oh, you are saying so much more. You are signaling that you see the whole domino effect. You're saying, this isn't just a missed date. This is a tangled web of negative effects. We lose the client, which means we miss our quarterly revenue target, which means we might have to freeze hiring, which means morale drops across the whole company.
It makes you sound like a systems thinker, like you see the big picture.
It does. It tells everyone in the room, this is a systemic problem, not an isolated incident. It's a very scary word to hear in a boardroom because it implies things are getting out of control and spreading.
And then there's the other one, the one that I think is even more evocative, more cinematic, fallout.
Fallout. This is a metaphorical usage derived directly from, nuclear terminology.
Which is terrifying in itself. That's the whole point.
It is. Nuclear fallout isn't the explosion. It's the radioactive dust that settles on the land after the explosion is over.
Right.
It lingers. It poisons the environment for years, long after the initial boom.
That is such a vivid, powerful image. So when the source uses the example, we are still dealing with the political fallout of the scandal. What are they really saying with that one word?
They're painting a picture of a toxic environment. The explosion, the scandal itself might be over. The news cycle has moved on. The headlines are gone. But the air is still poisonous.
Wow.
People are still untrusting. Systems are still broken. Reputations are still tarnished. The ground is contaminated.
So it implies these lingering toxic effects that last long, long after the initial event is finished.
Exactly. Consequence is clinical. Ramification is structural and complex. But Fallout is environmental and toxic. It suggests a deep, lasting poison.
It really does show that choosing the right word isn't just about looking up a synonym in a thesaurus. It's about choosing the emotional temperature of the message you're sending.
Absolutely. If you use fallout, you are telling people to put on their hazmat suits. You are warning them that this isn't a quick fix. This is a long-term cleanup operation.
Okay, let's shift gears to what I think is the most controversial part of the source material. This is where we have to unlearn what we were taught in school.
Ah, yes. The big one.
We're talking about the passive voice.
The enemy of every high school English teacher in history.
I remember it so clearly. My essays coming back just covered in red ink. Don't use passive voice. Be active. The boy kicked the ball. Not the ball was kicked by the boy.
Oh, yeah.
It was drilled into us that active is strong and passive is weak and evasive.
And to be fair, in narrative writing or in journalism, that's usually true. You want clarity. You want to know who did what to whom.
But the source comes along and says, hold on. In Western business culture, the passive voice is a critical tool for diplomacy.
This is one of those moments where academic English and professional English just completely diverge. In school, you want agency. You want to show who's in charge.
Right.
In high-level diplomacy or business, sometimes agency is the last thing you want to highlight.
The source calls this the psychology of the passive voice. Specifically, using it to de-emphasize the actor, the doer.
Let's look at the logic. The active voice, by its nature, highlights the doer. John broke the printer. The spotlight is on John. He is the villain. He is the agent of destruction.
Poor John. He's just standing there holding the broken paper tray. Everyone's staring at him.
Right. But what happens if we use the passive voice? The printer was broken.
John has vanished. He's disappeared from the sentence.
John is safe behind the curtain. The focus is now on the broken printer, which is the problem we all need to solve together.
It completely changes the energy in the room. John broke the printer feels like an accusation. The printer is broken feels like a status report.
Exactly. The source uses the report scenario, which is perfect. If I say, I made a mistake in the report, that's active. That's me standing up and saying, my bad, I did it.
Which is brave. We like to think we value accountability.
We do, in theory. But in a written record, in a formal email that's going to the client, in a legal document, that I is a liability.
Wow.
You are creating a permanent paper trail of your own incompetence.
So the source suggests the passive alternative. A mistake was made in the report.
Or, and this one is even better, even more sophisticated, the data was misinterpreted.
The data was misinterpreted. I love that. It's so scientific. It's almost like the data just sort of did it to itself. It's nobody's fault.
It shifts the focus to the event, not the person. We are looking at the error as an object to be analyzed and fixed, rather than looking at the person to be punished.
It's depersonalized.
It removes the human error element from the immediate discussion and focuses everyone on the systemic issue. It's just safer for everyone involved.
It creates a safe zone for problem solving. If we aren't busy blaming John, we can all focus on figuring out how to fix the damn printer.
Precisely. It de-escalates conflict before it even starts.
But wait, the source has a really important flip side to this, a golden rule. Because you can't just talk like a robot all the time.
No, absolutely not. If you use the passive voice for everything, you just sound weak. You sound like a bureaucrat who does nothing. Lunch was eaten. A meeting was had.
Work was done. It sounds awful.
It's terrible. You only visit the land of the passive voice when things are bad. It's your fallout shelter.
So when things are good, when you have a win, a success, what does the source say?
Switch immediately, aggressively back to the active voice.
Take all the credit.
Take all the credit. The source gives the example. I led the initiative that caused the increase in sales.
Not an increase in sales was caused.
Never say, an increase in sales was caused by the initiative that was led. That's boring, and it gives credit to the initiative, which is an abstract concept, not to you, the person who did the work.
So you want to say, I did this, we achieved this, my team accomplished this.
Yes. Be loud and proud. You own the good stuff.
So the strategy is, own your wins with active voice. Distance yourself from losses with passive voice, or, as we discussed, hedging.
It's strategic grammar. It sounds a little bit Machiavellian when you lay it out like that, but it is standard operating procedure in any large organization's communication. It's how you manage your professional brand.
It's really about managing perception. It's not about lying. It's about focus.
It is. And once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. Watch any CEO give a press conference. When profits are up, it's always, we executed our strategy, we delivered for our shareholders.
Active, we.
Always. And when profits are down, market conditions were challenging, headwinds were encountered.
And the classic, mistakes were made.
The ultimate passive voice dodge, the most famous one in history.
Okay, moving on to the final tool in our diplomatic toolkit. This one sounds a bit technical, maybe a little intimidating. Nominalization.
It sounds like a medical procedure, doesn't it? I'm going in for a nominalization on Tuesday.
It does, but it's actually a really powerful linguistic trick. It's turning verbs into nouns.
Right. Taking an action, something dynamic, something that happens, and turning it into a concept, something static, something that is.
And the source explains that this makes your language sound more academic, more formal, and more authoritative. It's how you sound like the boss.
Let's look at the mechanism of how this works. The source contrasts two sentences. The first one is simple and active. The chemicals reacted, and that caused the explosion.
That's very storytelling.
Yeah.
It's a narrative. First this happened, then that happened. It's a sequence of actions.
It's simple, it's clear, but it sounds a bit elementary, a little basic.
Yeah.
Now let's apply nominalization. You take the verb react and turn it into the noun reaction.
Okay.
And you get this sentence. The reaction of the chemicals was the catalyst for the explosion.
Oh, wow. Okay, that sounds completely different.
Notice the shift. We aren't talking about things doing stuff anymore. We are talking about concepts, the reaction, the catalyst.
It sounds heavier, more permanent, like it's an established fact.
It freezes the action into a static fact. It sounds objective and analytical. It sounds like a scientist or a CEO speaking. It moves you from description, just telling me what happened, to analysis, telling you what the concepts are and how they relate.
And generally, the person doing the analysis is the person in charge.
That's the key. Nominalization signals authority. It says, I'm not just in the weeds watching things happen. I am looking at this from a high level and understanding the principles at play.
The source highlights a specific power word here, which you just used, catalyst.
I love this word. It's a perfect example of nominalization and a powerful metaphor combined.
So instead of saying started or caused, you say catalyst. The CEO's speech was the catalyst for the culture shift.
Think about the chemistry class definition. A catalyst is something that speeds up or triggers a chemical reaction without being consumed by it.
Right. It makes things happen just by being there, but it's not part of the final product.
So when you use it in a business context, you're saying, this was the spark. This was the agent of change that set everything else in motion.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more sophisticated than just saying, the speech started the change.
Right.
It implies a deeper understanding of the mechanism. You're not just saying A led to B, you're explaining the scientific principle behind the change.
It just elevates the register of the whole conversation. You sound like you're analyzing the mechanics of the situation, not just describing a simple timeline.
And that's what leaders are paid to do. They analyze mechanics. They don't just list events.
So putting this all together, we've gone on quite a journey in this deep dive. The source material really outlines a progression, a kind of maturity model for communication.
It does.
We start with the basic connectors, because, so, therefore. Then we move up to these advanced tools, ramifications, catalysts, hedging strategies, nominalization, the passive voice.
It's a ladder of communicative competence. At the bottom of the ladder, you are just relaying facts. I am late because of the bus. Simple cause and effect.
Right.
At the top of the ladder, you are shaping reality. The transportation delay was the catalyst for the necessary schedule adjustment.
That sounds so much better than I missed the bus.
It does. It sounds like a logistical issue that required strategic thinking, not a personal failure.
And the source concludes with a little bit of philosophy, which I really appreciate. They say that cause and effect, when you get to this level, isn't just about grammar anymore. It's about how you interpret the world and how you relate to other people.
That's the big takeaway for me. Grammar isn't just a set of arbitrary rules you memorize for a test. It's a tool for cognition and for relationship management.
A tool for cognition.
Yeah. When you choose to hedge, you are choosing to respect the possibility of other viewpoints. When you choose the passive voice, you are choosing to prioritize solving the problem over assigning the blame. These are conscious, strategic choices.
The ultimate goal, as the source puts it, is controlling the nuance.
Exactly. It's not just about surviving the conversation. It's about steering it. It's about being the person who frames the issue, who sets the terms of the debate.
The source ends with a little pun, which I kind of enjoyed. They said they hope this series has been a catalyst for improvement.
A little nominalization humor there. Very droll. I like it.
And the final piece of advice. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, but use the passive voice when you do.
Sound advice for life and for business. I think we can all use that.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've looked at the fences, the fallout, the passive shields, and the catalysts. What's the big picture here?
I think the lesson is that mastery of language is mastery of perception. It really is that simple and that profound. If you can control how a cause is connected to an effect in your language, you can control how people perceive reality.
You can control the story.
You can control the story. You can smooth over a disaster, or you can amplify a warning to make sure people take it seriously. It's an incredible amount of power.
But here's a thought I want to leave you with. It's something that struck me while we were discussing all this, especially the hedging and the passive voice. It's kind of the dark side of this toolkit.
Dawn.
If we spend our entire professional lives building fences around our sentences and using the passive voice to avoid saying, I did it or you did it, do we eventually lose the ability to take true responsibility?
That is the danger, isn't it? That's the ethical tightrope. Does the language of diplomacy eventually erode actual accountability?
Yeah. If mistakes were made, but no one ever admits to making them, how do we ever learn? How do we fix the root cause if we are so busy hedging around it that we never actually name it?
It's a real problem. If the culture becomes one where no one ever takes direct ownership of a failure, the same failures are just doomed to be repeated. The system never learns.
So it's a balance. You need the shield to survive the politics of the workplace, but maybe sometimes you need to be the person with the courage to put the shield down and just say, I broke it. I'll fix it.
True. But maybe save that brave moment for when you have a lot of political capital in the bank.
Fair point. Use the tools wisely. It's something to mull over next time you're drafting that really difficult email. And hey, here's a challenge for you. In your next meeting, just sit back and listen.
Yeah.
See if you can spot who is hedging. See who is building fences. Observe the social engineering happening in real time.
It changes the way you hear everything. Once you know what to listen for, you will hear the gears turning behind the words.
It really does. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the art of nuance.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.